Shalom Aleichem, my friends. Basi Legani achaisi kala. I've come to my garden. My sister, my bride. This is Chaim Alefsky here. So today would be an appropriate day to return to running after 57 days of not being in Central Park. It's my first time out here on the reservoir because it's such a special time, and I want to share with you an encapsulation of the Rebbe's Mimer, first Mimer, otherwise known as a mission statement. 70 years ago, yesterday, on the 10th of Shvat, when the Rebbe assumed the mantle of leadership from the previous Rebbe who passed away 1 year prior, on the 10th of Shvat, 1950. And the Rebbe began his talk and initiated his leadership with what some might call his mission statement. Actually, the Rebbe coined it a mission statement. And I'm going to try to encapsulate in a few minutes what the Rebbe taught on that first fateful day in Yud Shvat, the 10th of Shvat, 1951. It was a Maimer, which is a Hasidic discourse, which is based on the previous Rebbe's final Hasidic discourse. And the Rebbe, for the next 50 years, extrapolated every year a little bit more from that original Hasidic discourse from the previous Rebbe. So now in the next 5 minutes or so, we're going to zoom through what the Rebbe taught. And in a nutshell, it's about the purpose of creation and how we achieve it. And Basi Legani achaisi kala. The Rebbe quotes a verse in Shir Hashirim, in the Song of Songs. I should be wearing my mask here, but there's very few people here. I'm trying to stay away from everyone, staying near the water. I've come to my garden, I've returned to my garden, says God to the Jewish people, because I was here. God's presence, otherwise known as the Shekhinah, was in Gan-Eden with Adam and Chava, and God wanted his main presence to be in the world, in this physical world. And then from the first transgression, when Adam and Chava ate from the sin of the tree of knowledge of Eitz Hadas, they concealed God's presence, God's Shekhinah. They made it withdraw and retrieve to the heavens. And there are 7 heavens, says the Kabbalah, and there are 7 generations of transgressions that pushed God's energy up higher and higher. Then, starting with Avram Avinu, came 7 tzaddikim, 7 righteous people, and brought that godly energy down. Ending, the 7th one was Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu made heaven kiss earth. He brought the godly energy, the Shekhinah, from the first heaven down to earth. Just like in contrast, Adam and Chava distanced God's energy from earth to heaven. So, moving on, how did Moshe do this? He did it by creating a Mishkan. God says, "V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'socham," and they should make for me a mikdash, a sanctuary, a tabernacle, a temporary temple, and I will dwell b'socham, in them, says God to Moshe, to tell the Jewish people. And the Rebbe extracts from here that b'soch, quoting the Midrash, b'socham, b'soch kol echad ve'echad, that God's presence is resting in each of them, in each of the Jewish people. How? That we become the sanctuary. We are the temple. What is the main service of the temple? The main service was the sacrifices, the korbanot. In the korbanot, they would offer an animal on an altar and give it to God. The Rebbe says, in our service to God, the first initial service is for us to offer our inner animal with the fire of the godly soul on our altar, which is always burning. There is always a fire burning on the mizbeach, on the altar. So too we have an inner fire, of godly fire that's burning, and we need to first subdue this animal within. And there are different types of animals. There's the sheep, the goats, all the way the rams and the bulls, and that represents the different kinds of characteristics, of characters that we have. Some people's animal within is tame, and some is more raging like a bull. But either way, we need to sacrifice that and pour its blood on the altar, meaning we need to submit our passion to God, to spirituality, to holiness. The Rebbe continues and says that the Mishkan was made out of atzei shittim, acacia wood. Shittim in Hebrew comes from the root of shtus. Shtus means foolishness, folly. The Rebbe says that in the world there's a line of rationality that makes sense for people to act upon in all areas of their lives, and many people dip below that line of rationality and they don't keep to that line. So since many people are below that line of rationality, to reverse that, to help finish the job and bring Mashiach, we need to rise above that line of rationality and go beyond the letter of the law, beyond what we are required to do as Jews in our communication between man and God, and also between man to man. Then the Rebbe goes on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to put my mask on over here. It's not working. Then, at least like this. Then the Rebbe says that we had the shittim, the acacia wood, shtus, and so we have to reverse that irrationality and raise it to a level that is serving God, that is above and beyond what is normal for us. The Rebbe moves on and says that this is a war, that God's war against the klipot, against the negativity in the world that God placed there. But we are waging God's war. And in a war, a king, in order to be victorious, a king has many treasures that have been hidden away for many years and generations. But the king splurges those pleasures, those treasures, and gives them even to the foot soldiers to win the war. And the king will actually risk his own life. Mashlich chayav mineged. He risks his own life in order to attain victory. So too, says the Rebbe, in these generations, the treasures that are being splurged, bizbuz ha'otzrot, the treasures are the Hasidic teachings. They are teachings of the times of Mashiach that are coming out right now, one of which we're learning right now together. That the Rebbe says that from the Baal Shem Tov on, they were splurging these ammunition, this powerful ammunition, for us to be able to win the war. Then the Rebbe said, just like in the first ascent and descent of God's Shekhinah from this world, there were 7 levels up and 7 levels down, and Moshe Rabbeinu was the 7th leader who brought the heaven down to earth. So too, says the Rebbe, from the time in the Chabad Hasidic dynasty, we have the Alter Rebbe, who was the first Chabad Rebbe who taught the teachings and organized philosophical, achievable, attainable manner. And our generation is the 7th generation, and we need to finish that job and bring Mashiach. We need to bring God from the lowest heaven down to this earth. The Rebbe also said that the mission statement is customary in a place wherever you go to. You do as they do. And the mission statement, he said, in America it's customary to give a mission statement when you start an organization or a business. And his mission statement was that there are 3 rings that are interlocked, and one cannot be without the other. It's the love of God, the love of Torah, and the love of the Jewish people. Ahavat Hashem, Ahavat Torah, and Ahavat Israel. The Rebbe said, one cannot be true without the other 2. But the Rebbe did say that with Ahavat Israel, with true Ahavat Israel, loving a fellow Jew the proper way because of his or her soul, we come to Ahavat Hashem and Ahavat Torah. Hey, I left out one important part. I'm just going to zoom through it right here, real quickly. In the Maimar, the Rebbe says it's a play on words, but it's just something that I didn't want to miss. The beams of the Mishkan were made, they're called in Hebrew, they're called krashim, kesher, keresh. The letters keresh are kuf, resh, shin. That's the beams of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. The Rebbe says that the keresh, if you take those 3 letters, kuf, resh, and shin, and transform them, they can also become sheker, shin, kuf, resh. Shin, kuf, resh means sheker, means falsehood, lies. And if you change them around a bit, they become kesher, kuf, shin, resh. Kesher means connection, bond, knot. So the Rebbe says that through the Mishkan, through this tabernacle, we transform the sheker of the world, the falsehood of the world, shin, kuf, resh, into keresh, into the beam of the Mishkan, and that forms a kesher, a bond between us and God. Just had to add that because I missed it. So just repeat the words. Sheker, the falsehood of the world, turns into a keresh, a beam of the Mishkan, and creates a kesher, a bond between us and God. Bingo. I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining me on my first run. We'll see what happens tomorrow. God bless you. Happy Shvat. It's really a day later. If you haven't yet gone to the Ohel, now's a good time. Be well.